Hey gang, Ross Brand here for LivestreamUniverse.com. This is Livestream Sports. Welcome. I'm joined by my guest, Korbid Thompson. It's our first time here for Livestream Universe going out just to Facebook Live using Wirecast, so hopefully you're hearing this and seeing this okay, and we appreciate you joining us on a Thursday night. And we're going to be talking about streaming audio tonight, and specifically streaming sporting events, play-by-play and talk shows and things like that. And joining me tonight is Korbid Thompson. Korbid is from King James Radio Network. Korbid and I actually worked together for WGHT in North Jersey covering sports, and now Korbid's running his own radio network online, doing live play-by-play, streaming from games. And Korbid, first of all, welcome. It's great to talk to you. It's been an awful long time since I said, let's go out to Korbid Thompson.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You know, the incomparable Ross Brand, the best studio host that North Jersey had to offer. So
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, great to be back on with you.
So give everybody a little introduction to King James Radio before we get into the nuts and bolts of doing play-by-play. You know, what kind of programming do you have? How often are you on? Where can people find you? All that kind of good stuff.
Well, how often I'm on, it kind of comes and goes by the season. So, for example, we're in football season right now, and so I cover primarily high school sporting events. But in football season, probably not as much as in basketball. Basketball, I find, is my busiest time. So football is more of a weekly thing. So it just depends on the season you catch me, but generally in the 3 to 4 days a week range. On Sunday, we even have a church program on Sunday nights called Restoration Place, and then throughout the week, Friday is usually our football night, and then we'll have a couple of things here and there in between, a couple of NFL type talk shows. Wednesday night with NFL Female, for example, is a show that's strictly hosted by women. I have no part in it as far as the on-air stuff. So a group of women that watch NFL games and can comment on it, and you'll be surprised with how much they actually study and watch the games and who's injured and who's trending and who's not, that kind of thing. And then we do a simulcast with a station out in Memphis, Tennessee, AM 730, SB Nation Sports out there. It's called Talkback Live, so we do our NFL picks and predictions for the week. So, we had a couple of other shows that we, kind of ended their run. As you know, I'm a Mets fan, so we had a Mets show.
Right.
And so we put that one to bed, I think, just as much for my blood pressure as anything else. And so, we had a 2-minute drill show that we did from Buffalo Wild Wings here in the North Brunswick, New Jersey area. We did that for several years. So, basically here and there, basketball season's right around the corner, so things will start to pick up as we get towards the winter. Like next week, for example, we're going to be doing a show with some high school coaches, and hopefully Chris Peichel, who's the head basketball coach, men's basketball coach at Rutgers University. Hopefully we can get him on and that type of thing.
Oh, that sounds interesting. When you do your talk shows, as opposed to doing the games, do you do those live or do you pre-record those?
The games are live. The games are live. I have my little wireless, thingy right here, and so the games are live. And of course, for football goes a little bit longer than say basketball. High school basketball generally runs in the 2-hour range. Football is more in the 2.5 to 3. And then baseball runs in the more the 2.5 to 3 hour range. So it just varies with the sport, but all the games that we do are live. And then I will rebroadcast certain games, kind of similar to what you might see if you follow the New York stations here, similar to what you might see with SNY or the Yes Networks, where they'll have some classic games that they rebroadcast. So we'll do that. But to answer your question, all the games are live.
And then the studio shows or the talk shows you pre-record, or?
Some are pre-recorded. Actually, I'm at the point now where they're pretty much all pre-recorded.
Okay.
Like the 2-minute drill show that we did was live. We were live at the restaurant, and we went live on the air. And so that was always fun when we would have a signal loss and we would cut out live on the air. That's always fun. So you deal with those types of things, and you try to work around those. But right now, and it may change, but right now the studio shows are pre-recorded.
So talk a little bit about your setup when you're doing a game. You're going out, you're doing the game, it's going to be live, it's going to be streaming to the internet from the stadium where you're broadcasting, or the arena if it's basketball season. How do you set up? What kind of equipment do you need to do it? Just kind of give a layout of, what you bring with you and how you go about getting that audio broadcast on the air.
Well, it all basically starts with, like I said, with this little thing here. If I don't have this, then, I have some problems. And you can get this from, whatever wireless carrier you have.
Hold it up again if you can. Just hold it up and kind of slowly so that people can get us. So it's a very small device that you're using to connect to the internet.
Yeah, it's a wireless hotspot device. Like I said, you can get it from your wireless carrier. In my case, I have AT&T, but if you have Sprint or Verizon or whomever, they should have one. I'm trying to think. It costs, I think, about $20 to $30 a month, depending on your carrier, and that kind of thing. So I have that. Now, if you can get a wireless signal in the facility that you're in, great. But most times, especially in high school buildings, that's generally not the case. So you probably carry one of these just to make sure that you have something. So that's where it starts. And then in my case, it really all depends on how far you want to go. If you're just trying to get on the air and that's all you're really interested in, then you could just whoops, I forgot to turn my flashlight off here, but you can just use your phone. So it's as simple as that. You can just have an app on your phone and be done with it. But if you want to go high tech, in my case, I have a mixing board, and so I have a mixing board, and I have cables, and I have XLR cables, and I set up that way. So I'm not sure you want a live demonstration here, but basically the mixing board, the XLR cables, you have your microphone headsets, which in my case I got from B&H in New York City, cost about $200 each. So like I said, you could spend anywhere, literally from $20 to $2,000, to just depending on how far you want to go.
Right, you could actually just take your cell phone out there and call in the game if you really wanted to. But what it sounds like, it's a very professional setup that you have. You rely on the hotspot for your internet access, and then everything else you kind of using traditional broadcast equipment with the XLR cables, the traditional headset with the microphone that comes around, and like a wind protector and so forth. And so then the next thing you get into with doing this is, where do you distribute the broadcast to once you are sending it, streaming it to the internet, right? Where do people go to listen to it? Do you have a website where they go, or do you use like a hosting service or an audio service of some kind? Like, how do you then get that to where the listener can hear it?
Well, it's basically both. There's my main website, the King James Radio Network website, and then I use Spreaker, Spreaker, and over the years I've been, the network has been around for 5 years now. So through those 5 years, I've used Ustream, I've used Blog Talk Radio, and now I'm on Spreaker. And I guess the thing with Spreaker is, it's a little complicated at this point, but I don't like Blog Talk Radio. When we were on Blog Talk Radio, for a little while anyway, we were able to get a good amount of listens just from Blog Talk Radio featuring us on their homepage and different things like that. But with Spreaker, it seems like I have a more consistent connection, that type of thing. I'm not always cutting out and things like that. So Spreaker is our carrier, if you will. Now the website is jamesisking.com. So I'll have a widget from Spreaker that I will post to the website for that particular game or that particular event, and post it to the website. So that way you don't have to remember Spreaker.com/user/King James Radio Network. You don't have to remember all of that. You just go to jamesisking.com. The widget will be right there, and you can just click the play button and listen from there.
And that'll be the Spreaker broadcast, which will be playing on your website. You'll be using Spreaker as your host for the audio.
Correct.
Okay, so that makes sense. And when you do the games, do you have a color commentator, an analyst, anybody else, or is it completely a one-man show?
I was thinking if you're ever in the area, Ross Brand wants to, be a guest color commentator. But it's most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, no, it's just me. Every now and again, I will have a guest color commentator, depending on the sport. If that person has obviously played the sport before or has some type of expertise in the field. It's funny. I'm at the point now where I actually have former players actually messaging me and asking me if they can come in and do color commentary.
Oh, wow.
I had somebody message me just a couple of days ago, and she asked me if she could do color commentary for a particular basketball game coming up, like almost 3 months away. So every now and again, I'll have a guest color commentator, just depending on the sport and the magnitude of the event. But most of the time, it's me.
We're talking with Korbid Thompson. Korbid is the founder of the King James Radio Network. He does play-by-play, has talk shows, a variety of programming, does live broadcasts of sporting events. He's a former sportscaster with WGHT Radio, where he was an on-site reporter, did some play-by-play, was a studio host. Korbid's done a little bit of everything sportscasts, and now he's running his own King James Radio Network online. And one of the things that, I'm kind of interested about, Korbid, is when you do a game, how much cooperation do you get from the school, from the coaches? I know, like, with doing, say, high school sports, you don't know sometimes up until the minute who's going to be on the roster, who's going to be in the starting lineup. There's no press conference 2 hours before where the manager sits down with you and gives you the starting lineup, and it's all, you can get everything, all the stats online. How much cooperation do you get from the coaches in doing games?
Well, I should first say a very immature Korbid Thompson at WGHT, way back when, it used to get me in some hot water here and there, but you know all about that. But, I know. But as far as the coaches go, luckily I've been blessed to have, at North Brunswick, New Jersey, and also our Timothy Christian basketball games, I've been blessed to be able to work with coaches that they understand it. I think the key there is that if your coach understands where technology is going and what it's about, then you'll more likely get a lot more cooperation than you would from someone. I have more trouble with athletic directors than I do with coaches. If you come across an athletic director that doesn't quite understand what the technology is and how it works, and then they're going to be a little more apprehensive to let you come into their place and broadcast a game. Because then, it starts getting into privacy issues and different things. Luckily, at WGHT, of course, we never had that problem because we were WGHT. Right. But when you're on your own, you have to establish yourself, build relationships with coaches and athletic directors and that kind of thing. So the coaches, like I said, at North Brunswick and Timothy Christian have been great. When you send out a lot of emails during the course of a particular season, so some are better at returning your emails more than others. Some are better at returning your text more than others. But as a general rule, they've all been great as far as if I need a stat or if there's a player on the roster that just showed up yesterday, like you said, maybe 5 minutes before the game, you're looking at your roster and, okay, wait a minute, I don't see number 00 here. So they're pretty good as far as that goes. Or someone that just got called up from JV to kind of fill in as a last person off the bench, that type of thing. Yeah. So, but yeah, like I said, luckily they've been very good as far as information, and I have a few of their phone numbers, not all, a few of their phone numbers, and so I can pretty much reach them whenever I need to.
Yeah, absolutely. The injury reports aren't in the paper, so you got to kind of dig up that information. I remember the craziest sport that I ever covered in terms of, like, you don't know who's going to be on the team, who's going to be playing, what number they're going to wear, was the USBL, the United States Basketball League. I mean, they just, like, it's like they have shirts ready, and some team cuts somebody or gets rid of them, and they bring them over. Or somebody's in town for like a couple of days who played at the local college or whatever. All right, let's get them a jersey and get them out here.
Yeah.
So that was the craziest sport to cover, because you just didn't know from game to game. You could go on the website, you could look up what's going on with those teams, but who actually showed up from the other team or even your own team that you were covering? No, no similarity to what actually was what you received a few hours earlier.
Oh no, I've had high schools, not North Brunswick, but I've seen other high schools where they'll have basketball in this case. Someone will be wearing a particular number, and someone else will come on the court with that exact same number. And what the coach did was they got a long piece of tape, because it was a double-digit number. So they would cover up the first number. They put they make a piece of tape and an X over the first number, and then it would just be a single digit. I've seen that happen. Yeah, so
you don't know whether to say number 5 or X5.
Right. Instead of 25, it's X5. So believe me, I've seen some weird things. I should tell you, the craziest thing I've seen, it had nothing to do with like coaching or anything, but you probably don't remember this. This was one of our WGHT game of the week and football season. We were at Passaic County Tech, and I'm doing sideline. I'm a sideline reporter. Right. And so I got the wireless microphone, and it says WGHT on it and all that. And our sports director and our assistant sports director are calling the game up in the press box. And so they come down to me whenever I have a story to report or what have you. And so during the broadcast, all of a sudden I look up. I don't know if John ever told you about this, our sports director. I don't know if he ever told you about this, but the press box, there's a speaker atop the press box, and the speaker caught fire during the game. You see this big flame coming out of the speaker in the press box. There's smoke coming out. Now I'm on the sideline, and so I'm looking up and I see this and realizing that my boss and my assistant boss are in the press box.
Right.
And the players are turning around and looking. The funny part is the game still went on. The game continued as if nothing was happening.
The broadcast too continued?
Yeah, yes. And luckily nobody got hurt, but that was one of the wackier moments at a high school football game. Is you have to be ready for just about anything.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. So, it's got to be kind of a special thing for the kids at North Brunswick and Timothy Christian, who you do games for, to have so many opportunities to have their games covered and broadcast where family members and friends and people like that can listen. I imagine even now, as we're moving more and more into online broadcasting for sports and particularly local sports, there's still a lot of schools that don't have their games broadcast, right? Unless it's like a game of the week situation or something where, the local cable station comes in and does one game a year for the team or something like that, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I just had a guy last week, an athletic director. Actually, he's not even the athletic director yet. He's going to be taking over for the preceding athletic director. But he paid me before he denied me access to his game that I wanted to do. He actually paid me a nice compliment. He said that he wishes he had something like what I do with North Brunswick. But and then the conversation kind of went south from there. Right. But that had more to do with the coach than it did with the athletic director. But that's a whole nother conversation. But yes, the parents have been great. I probably wouldn't have the support that I do is in terms of listeners and sponsors wise, without the parents, being one of the best parts of this is being able to talk with certain parents about, in this case, football season now, about the games from week to week, or strategy and different things, just like you would in the pro game. You do it in the high school game. So the parents have been phenomenal. Our Jersey Basketball Association parents, we do a youth sports league, the Jersey Basketball Association, which is the largest of its kind in New Jersey. And so the parents there, the reception that we've gotten from the parents has been tremendous. And so they're the backbone of the listenership. The one thing that, as you grow, in covering one team, like you said, there are stations out there, down in this area, it's WCTC, Central Jersey 1450 WCTC. So they'll do a game of the week and they'll go from place to place. But when you're doing one school or one team, one of the things you have to do to kind of grow your listenership is you have to get the other school involved, the opposing team, and try to get their parents involved and let them know that there's a broadcast here and their kid's name might be mentioned. Some parents have that that gleam in the eye when they hear that their kid is going to be playing in a game that's on the radio. So so you try to get like I said, the other schools people involved as well. So it gets a little more intricate as time goes on.
So when you now you do these games and you've been doing it for a while, is this like a labor of love, or is this something where you go out and you sell advertising and it's a business as well?
It's more labor of love than it is business at this point, because I also narrate audiobooks, so that's more of the business. So that's more of the where that's a business. As far as this, it's more of a labor of love where I just, like I said, I like talking to the parents in between games. I like just following along and because sports, unlike in news, where a newscaster more times than not will get the story after it's already happened. In sports, when you show up that more times than not something is going to happen, good, bad, or indifferent. Right. Something's going to happen. And I'm not knocking news, obviously news is very important, but like I said, in news, you don't always, you usually show up after the fact. You usually show up after, whatever it might be, a shooting or a bombing or whatever. In sports, you get there, like I said, before anything happens, and you get to see it from start to finish. So that's the great thing about it.
Yeah. So when you're doing a game and you go to halftime or it's in between quarters or whatever, do you have spots that you play, or what do you do to fill those dead times in a sporting event?
Well, again, this is probably where I'd like to have a monologue from Ross Brand, but but this is where I'd love to throw it to halftime and say, back in the studios, Ross Brand is standing by, but unfortunately, I cannot afford Ross Brand at this point. Ross Brand, commands a hefty salary that I simply, it took me enough to get this sweater, so I can't, I'm hoping, my dream is one day to be able to afford Ross, but at this point,
it's a pretty darn nice sweater. I mean, for you get another one like that, I might do a couple of games.
I will. I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you to that. This is recorded, right? I'm going to hold you to that.
Those of us who do broadcasting love free stuff.
Absolutely.
Get a sweater like that. I'll come down to North Brunswick for a game or two.
All right. I'm going to hold you. But do you know how long I waited for my WGHT T-shirt? I probably waited a good 3-4 years for my WGHT T-shirt. I still have it. We haven't been there like 4 years. I still have it to this day. I still have it.
You could only wear it anyway, like the last couple baseball games of the season. That was pretty much it. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, even if I'm not on, doing my own thing, if I'm going to the grocery store, what have you, I'll still wear it. Right. To what was your question, Ross?
So yeah, when you go to break, like, do you go to break, or do you just talk right through the like when the commercial times would be, when halftime would be? Like, how do you fill the gaps? Like, the end of the first quarter, there's going to be a few minute break till the second quarter starts. Do you just keep it there and, analyze what's happened, or do you have like some spots or some PSAs or something ready to run that you can run from your setup?
Well, obviously it varies depending on the sport, but for like baseball is continuous. So, you take your breaks in between the half innings, which for high school, it's not like, it's not like the pros where you get 2 or 3 or 4 minutes to play a whole bunch of spots. In high school, you're lucky if you get 45 to 60 seconds, you consider yourself good.
Right.
Because in high school, the timeouts are like 30 seconds. In basketball, you get a couple of 60-second timeouts, but it's not that many. So what I do is just, let's say in between quarters, I'll go ahead and I'll play a 30-second spot or a 45-second spot. I have 2 main sponsors right now, which is the North Brunswick Baseball and Softball Association, the local organization here, and then a local dentist office, Route 1 Dental. So I'll sprinkle those in if there's a timeout or if there's in between quarters. At halftime, what I usually like to do at halftime is I'll do a pre-recorded interview with someone that has to do with the team or the school in some type of way. I've had the mayor of North Brunswick, Mr. Francis Womack, on at halftime a couple of times. So just anything to do with the school or the town or the team, or it may be a newspaper writer that covers that particular sport in the conference. Something that that I think that people will, now of course, a lot of people will, at halftime get up and go take a break, do whatever. But hopefully the people that are left, they'll have something, captivating to listen to come halftime.
No, that's a great way to do it. And, it's a lot of work being a one-man show for play-by-play, particularly in sports like football. Like basketball, hockey, not as difficult because the action's so constant during the game. But football in particular, they're still huddling up most places. There's more shotgun, more spread offenses, more no huddle stuff than ever. But I don't know, has that reached the high school game yet, or is the high school game still huddling up after a play and coming to the line?
Well, yeah, they still huddle. As a matter of fact, one of the things that in covering one team is like, I try to stay as objective as I can. I try not to, and this is one of the things, hopefully, our former sports director, John Bass, isn't listening to this, because I would never admit this to him personally. But one of the things I learned from him is about objectivity and about, just trying to stay somewhat neutral, even if you're covering one team. You want to present when the other team does something good as well. Right. But in terms of the huddle, in football, yes, they still huddle. That hasn't changed. Yeah, that hasn't changed. Now in New Jersey, of course, there's no play clock that's displayed anywhere. So nobody, unless you ask the referee right there on the spot, you don't really know how much time you have to run a play. And in basketball, there's no shot clock. Right. So you can take as long as you want. So as somebody, what happens a lot is towards the end of a game, if there's a team winning, let's say winning by 4 or 5 points, they'll just pass the ball around with like less than 2 minutes, let's say, in the fourth quarter. They'll just pass the ball around and try to run out the clock as much as they can. And the other team, then it's up to the other team to foul or what have you. So you have to fill in a little bit of time there. I mean, right. you have to let the audience know what this team is trying to do. But yeah, in football, they still huddle. Yeah, so that's still the same.
You see so many colleges now going to spread offense and, not necessarily hurry up, but just sort of skipping the huddle, right? More and more so that the defense, and in the pro level too, so that the defense can't substitute, specialty substitute as much between plays. Yeah,
the defense will try to, in the pros, they might try to catch, if they see the defensive personnel's not right, they might try to catch the defense with 12 men on the field or something like that. The high school game, unless you're talking about, a national power,
Right,
You
right.
know, more of the local schools aren't usually going to do that. It's funny. A couple of weeks ago, because I have to catch myself sometimes. Like North Brunswick was trailing in a game in the fourth quarter, and they were in their huddle, their regular huddle, and this was like with under 5 minutes left. They were down by 2 scores, and I'm like, "Where's the no huddle?" So you have to catch yourself sometimes. In like I said, when you're covering one particular team, now there's some that will root for, they'll openly on the air root for that team. They'll scream out loud, yes, or whatever. I try not to do that. That's generally just not me. Everybody's different. So I don't knock, if you have more of a homer type of call, but generally I try to stay as close to neutral as I can, understanding that this is a North Brunswick or a Timothy Christian broadcast, and we're going to talk mostly about them. We'll get in some stuff about the other team too, but it's going to be at least 60-40, for the home team.
Right, right. And you're able to do interviews with coaches after the game. Will they come over and sit down with you and do a quick interview after the game?
Yes, if I ask them to, yes. Generally, I like to talk to the players after a game. In my case, again, everybody's different. In my case, I usually talk to a coach before a game.
Okay.
So for football, for example, we have a 30-minute pregame show. So that's when I'll talk to the coach then in the pregame. And then, like I said, after a game, I'll talk to a player about what happened in the game and so on and that kind of thing.
Now, you're not mobile, right? Where your setup is, you'll need them to come over to you and talk to you like in front of the board where you can set them up and everything, right?
Correct. Yes.
So you got to get some cooperation from a coach or from somebody, right, to make sure that kid comes over and they know where to go and all that kind of stuff. Now, probably the home team is so used to seeing you that it's like kind of almost like a given now. If you're the star of the game, you talk to Corbett afterwards. But if you wanted to talk to somebody from the visiting team, then you'd have to arrange it.
Pretty much, yes. For example, if I have a rule, and again, everybody's different, but my rule is with the opposing team, and it varies with the sport. So in basketball, let's say, if a visiting or an opposing player scores, let's say 30 points against the team that I'm doing, then I'll go and talk to that player. 30 is my rule.
Right.
It actually happened once. And now you may get a few raised eyebrows from the team that you're covering and saying, what is he doing talking to her? But outside of that, that's my rule.
If it's not really newsworthy, then you're not gonna. It's
right.
worth it if it's a superstar performance. It's not worth it if it's the leading scorer had 10 points and they want a slow down game.
right. Now, if it's WGHT or WCTC and it's a neutral broadcast, then you're going to pick a player from the winning team, whomever that might be. So it's altogether different in a neutral broadcast than it would be in a hometown broadcast.
Will the player from the losing team come over and talk to you if it's from the home team?
Yes. Actually, I'm not the only time. I've never been turned down live on the air. I will say that. Now, the only time I was ever turned down as far as a hometown team, it was a pre-recorded interview that I was going to use for a segment. But other than that, as far as live on the air, I've never been turned down, knock on wood, for an interview. So like I said, the people at North Brunswick and Timothy Christian have been great. And like you said, the players at this point, now when I first started, there was actually one player that thought I was stalking them, which, my wife concurred. And, but since then, I've been able to grow enough of a rapport with the players and the coaches to where they know who I am and they know why I'm there. And so even the ones that don't really have much to say, they'll at least come and talk to you and say a few words or what have you.
Do you get any feedback from the parents or even from the players themselves? Like, oh man, why did you say that about me? I was where I was supposed to be. It wasn't my fault on that play. Or Hey, thanks so much. I love that call. We've been listening to it all day or whatever of my game-winning hit. Do you get that kind of feedback? Do they, the parents come up and talk to you or players from time to time?
Do you remember Chaz Servino from DePaul?
I do. Yeah, quarterback, right?
The quarterback, yeah. He heard me. Now this is before the King James Radio Network, but
Right.
he this is WGHT days, but I was a stringer. I was out in the field covering a game, one of his games, and he heard me. I guess he heard me on the air. He must have went back and listened or somewhat and heard me on the air saying that he had. I think I said he had like 2 touchdowns, and the next time he saw me, he said I had 3 touchdowns. So you will get that every now and again, every once in a great while, not often. Actually, just last week, the volleyball coach at North Brunswick, she told me that one of the players actually was listening to the broadcast, and generally they don't, like I said, they won't generally come up to you and say thank you or nice job, or you'll get a parent every so often when they bump into you somewhere that'll say that. But generally the players, it's almost like in college and in the pros, they're just the college and pro athletes, they're just so used to it that it's just kind of, it's just another day at the office for them.
Right.
So high school, every now and again, but it doesn't happen a lot, and that doesn't bother me. I don't necessarily do it for a pat on the back or the applause or anything like that. Mostly the post game interview seems to draw most of the attention. They'll say thank you for interviewing me or what have you. So that's where most of it goes. But as far as the game itself, it doesn't happen often. Like I said, every once in a great while.
Are all of your games that you've done, are they all still available on the internet? Can somebody go back and listen to a game from 3 or 4 years ago? Do you keep them all up online? Or are they, subscription only? Like, how do you, if you wanted to find a game from 3 or 4 years ago, how would somebody go about doing that?
On Blog Talk Radio, we were on Blog Talk Radio from 2012 to 2014. So all of that stuff is still up online. I haven't taken any of that stuff down. The stuff on Spreaker basically goes back to about a year or so, roughly about a year or so. Just because of the package I have to make sure that I'm within a certain amount of space.
Right.
So roughly about a year it goes back. If you do want to hear something like a special request, you can always email me. For those of my North Brunswick folks that might be listening, King James Radio 1@gmail.com. If you have a special request from a game 3-4 years ago, just email me and I'll find a way to put it somewhere for you. But yeah, now that I'm on Spreaker, basically about a year and a half tops, I'll have games from back then.
And can the players, if they like something, can they just go ahead and download it from Spreaker, or they need to contact you in order to get a copy if they wanted to have a copy of the game?
They can download it right from Spreaker. I have the settings where, and you can set this as the broadcaster whether you want to download it or not. So I have it set to where they can. There's no charge or anything like that. So they can do that and go from there. So
what players have you covered? I know you've covered a few that have made it to the big time. Who have you covered in doing the online radio who's now playing in the pros or went on to play big time college and maybe got a cup of coffee or something up at the pro level?
I like how you make me sound important, Ross. Well, when I was at WGHT, I didn't really have a chance, to cover, let's say, Victor Cruz like Ross Brand did. I didn't have that.
I covered him playing basketball, not football, but that's good enough, right?
Yes, it's the same guy. Yes. So, so when I was at WGHT, I didn't have that. I think Chris Hogan was as close as I got. Who plays for? He played for the Bills. I think he's on another team now.
Yeah.
So that was as close as I got. But with the King James Radio Network, Carl Towns, the number one draft pick.
Nice.
Not this year, of course, last year. Now at the Timberwolves, we did one of his games. They played North Brunswick in the GMC Greater Middlesex Conference Tournament Finals in 2012. So that's one of our Classic Raiders games. It's actually the only Classic Raiders game that I broadcast where the Raiders lost that day. It was a championship game at the Rutgers Athletic Center, and so Carl Towns was a freshman in high school. That game. There's another kid. There's a North Brunswick kid actually. Placido Torres is his name. He is a pitcher, left-handed pitcher. He's now in the New York Mets organization. He just got drafted this year in the 8th round. So I had a chance to interview him back in September for our 5th anniversary show that we did. So those are the two that stand out as far as going pro. There's a couple of other baseball players that have been drafted to pro organizations. Mike Wilson, who played for Colonia, he got drafted by the Red Sox.
Right.
Robbie Pito got drafted by the Angels. He's from Monroe. So there's a couple that have, opened the door, but, not quite there yet. So hopefully as the years go on, we'll get to more and more of that, kind of thing.
So in the time we have left, we got to talk about some of the big teams now, because I know you're a huge Met fan, and I was wondering, bring Cespedes back or move on?
Do we really want to talk about Cespedes? I get into arguments with Mets fans about Cespedes, and our former colleague Satish Shah, he argues with me all the time about different things, but in particular, Yoenis Cespedes. I'm okay for bringing him back at the right price. Okay, I'm not going overboard, because they're Mets fans are ready to jump off the George Washington Bridge if we don't re-sign him. But I'm just 86 RBIs is 86 RBIs. You can talk to me about. See, now you got me started.
Right.
You can talk to me about injuries. You can talk to me about guys not getting on base in front of him. 86 is 86. So to pay a guy in the 30 million plus range, and unless he's driving in 120, and he's either hitting close to 300 or in between 40 and 50 home runs, I understand the free agent market is thin, and I understand that. But just as Cespedes popped up at the trade deadline in 2015, there is always a plan B that will present itself. So right. I'm not going to be held hostage by one guy. Even if you sign Cespedes, it doesn't guarantee you a World Series, i.e. this year. So I'm okay. I'll bring him back at the right price, but I'm not going nuts.
Right. Now you're a Knicks fan also, right?
No. I don't have an NBA team.
Okay.
And if I was a Knicks fan, I'd probably be in therapy right now.
All right, let's move on. You're a Giants fan, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I'm not going to ask you about the Josh Brown situation, although that seems to be the main talk going on around the Giants, or at least the media with the Giants. What do you make of this Giants team? I mean, some weeks they don't look like they can block anybody. Other weeks they move the football pretty well. The defense is much better, quicker than I thought it would be, but the offense is a little sluggish.
Well, for starters, Josh Brown. Obviously, you don't condone anything that's happened there. So that's the obvious part. And the Giants, John Mara, he owned up to the fact that he made a mistake in not dismissing Josh Brown sooner. So if you recognize that you made a mistake, that's all you can do. And hopefully Robbie Gould, their new kicker, turns out to be just as good or better, and you move on. As far as the offense, they can't run the ball. They've got injuries to their backs, but even before then, they've had a hard time consistently with the run game. And so now Eli Manning is using these short passes as a glorified running game. So I don't know how long, if we know that as spectators, the other team's going to figure it out in 5 seconds. So that's where I would have concerns if I'm the Giants. And Ben McAdoo, first-time head coach, of course, hopefully he can, get a grasp on the entire team as opposed to just offense. get a grasp on the entire team. Odell Beckham is a whole another situation. While I do think Odell has some maturing to do, I think guys like Josh Norman and other guys around the league certainly don't help the situation, by trying to goad him into stuff. So I think there has to be just as much of a spotlight on those guys as Beckham.
Right. The secondary's been really good, and it's particularly the last game. The secondary was terrific. When they're healthy, they're a heck of a secondary. They haven't been healthy a lot, but Landon Collins is much improved. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie is always good, and Janoris Jenkins has really been solid since they came along. So obviously this was their breakout game against the Rams, but if they can keep those three guys healthy, they've got a really strong secondary, which was an area for a long time that was kind of a weakness for the Giants.
Yeah, and with the addition of Eli Apple, so like you said, they're improving the defense. They're not giving up, the late touchdown in the fourth quarter. Steve Spagnuolo, who's has been tabbed as a defensive wizard, but you can only work with what you have. So yes, defensively things have seemed to picked up, and they got the bye week this week, so get some guys healthy. Come back next week, and they still have to play the Eagles twice. They still got to play the Cowboys again. They still have the Redskins. So they still got a long way to go here in this second half of the season.
Well, Corbett, it's been awesome having you on and chatting again. It's been too long. I guess at the rate we're going, it'll be another 9 years till our next show, or maybe we'll find a way to get me down there. You'll have another sweatshirt come along.
I gotta get the sweater out to you. Definitely. Yeah.
So thanks so much for doing this and for sharing kind of behind the scenes of what goes on in doing an online radio play-by-play broadcast and streaming it to the internet, and working with high schools and local broadcasts and stuff like that. Really interesting stuff. And, I wish you all the best with King James Radio, and, look forward to continuing the conversation soon.
Hey, thanks so much, Ross. If you do have a question that I can answer, I'm on Twitter at Korbid, Korbid Thompson, and you can find me there if you have a question or what have you. But Ross, always great to catch up with you again. And like I said, the premier studio host at WGHT. I mean, this guy. Do you have your picture in the studio there?
I don't think so. I think they eliminated all sports memories.
That is you're probably right about that.
Yeah, although they probably still have the AP awards, right? They were pretty proud of that. I was going to say, stopped doing sports.
I know my name is not on that. Yours might be.
No, it was a department thing, I think. But anyway,
yes,
it's so great to have you on, Korbid Thompson, King James Radio Network at King James Radio 1 on Twitter. Check him out. Doing North Brunswick sports and also Timothy Christian basketball, and he's got a variety of programming, sports talk, and other programming that he does. And we'll be back. You can see our updates every day right here on Facebook, on the Livestream Universe Facebook page, and then we'll be back Monday night with Livestream Stars also here on Facebook Live. Have a great evening, everybody.